In the heart of a grand and bustling kingdom, where golden spires pierced the sky and cobblestone streets buzzed with life, stood the royal guards. Clad in shining armor that reflected the sunlight like mirrors, they were an imposing sight. Their boots clicked rhythmically against the ground as they patrolled the city, their faces stern and unreadable. To most people, these guards were more like statues than humans, symbols of authority, order, and power. Few dared to approach them, let alone strike up a conversation. After all, everyone knew the rules. The royal guards were there to enforce the law, not to chat or laugh. But what many didn't realize was that behind those polished helmets and unyielding expressions lay real people with feelings, memories, and stories of their own. No one stopped to think about the lives hidden beneath the armor. Were they husbands missing their families? Fathers worrying about their children? Or perhaps dreamers who once hoped for something different but found purpose in protecting others? The kingdom itself was a vibrant place, filled with merchants calling out their wares, musicians playing lively tunes on street corners, and children chasing each other through narrow alleys. Yet, despite all this energy, there was always an invisible line between the citizens and the guards. The guards' job was clear: to keep the peace, protect the royals, and ensure no chaos disrupted the harmony of the land. But over time, this role had created a gap between them and the very people they swore to serve. Some whispered that the guards were cold, almost machine-like in their dedication to duty. Others believed they were simply following orders without question, unable to show kindness even if they wanted to. These rumors only deepened the divide. Children would stare wide-eyed at the towering figures during parades, imagining them as heroes from tales of battles and bravery. Adults, however, often looked away, assuming the guards existed in a world far removed from their own struggles. Yet every now and then, small moments hinted at something deeper. A guard might pause briefly to help an elderly woman cross the busy marketplace, his hand gently guiding her while ignoring the curious glances of passersby. Another might share a kind word with a nervous vendor whose cart had tipped over, spilling fruits onto the ground. While these acts were subtle and went largely unnoticed, they planted tiny seeds of doubt in the minds of those who believed the guards were incapable of compassion. Still, such gestures were rare, drowned out by the overwhelming image of discipline and control. Most days, the guards remained distant, focused on their tasks, their expressions giving nothing away. It was hard to imagine that beneath their armor, they carried emotions just like anyone else. But little did the people know, change was coming. A series of events that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the men and women in uniform. What none of them could foresee was how ordinary moments, seemingly insignificant at first glance, would reveal extraordinary depths of humanity within the ranks of the royal guards. These moments were about to unfold in ways no one expected, melting even the hardest hearts and bridging the gap between protector and protected. Rumors had been swirling for months. Whispers of merchants being forced to pay unfair taxes, of officials pocketing gold meant for public projects, and of bribes exchanged under the cover of darkness. At first, these stories seemed like idle gossip, the kind that often floated through marketplaces and taverns. But as the murmurs grew louder, they began to take shape into something more sinister, a web of corruption that reached far beyond what anyone dared imagine. Sergeant Bran, a seasoned guard known for his sharp instincts and unshakable moral compass, couldn't ignore the unease gnawing at him. He had overheard snippets of conversations while patrolling the streets, merchants speaking in hushed tones about the tax collector's cut, or nervously glancing over their shoulders before slipping coins into an official's hand. It wasn't just one person or two. It was systematic, deliberate, and devastating for those who depended on fair trade to survive. Determined to uncover the truth, Bran began keeping a journal. Every night after his shift, he scribbled notes by candlelight, documenting everything he observed: suspicious meetings in shadowy alleys, sudden wealth among certain officials, and the growing despair of honest traders struggling to make ends meet. Over time, these scattered pieces formed a pattern, a damning trail leading straight to the head of the royal council, Lord Cedric. But gathering evidence wasn't enough. Bran knew that confronting such a powerful figure would require courage and risk. If caught, he could face severe consequences, perhaps even exile or imprisonment. Yet the thought of remaining silent felt worse. The guards were sworn to protect not only the crown, but also the people it represented. How could he stand idly by while injustice thrived? One moonless night, Bran made his move. Under the cover of darkness, he slipped into the palace archives, where records of transactions and decrees were stored. His heart pounded as he carefully sifted through scrolls and ledgers, searching for proof of Lord Cedric's crimes. Hours passed, each tick of the clock heightening the tension. Finally, his hands trembled as he uncovered a document detailing illegal payments funneled directly into Cedric's coffers. The next morning, Bran requested an audience with the king. Nervous but resolute, he presented the evidence, explaining how the corruption had bled the kingdom dry and eroded trust between rulers and citizens. The room fell silent as the king examined the documents, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Bran feared he'd overstepped his bounds. But then, the king nodded slowly, his voice steady as he commended Bran for his bravery. What followed was chaos. Lord Cedric was arrested, and an investigation exposed the full extent of his schemes. Merchants breathed sighs of relief as unjust fees were abolished, and funds were redirected to rebuild crumbling bridges and repair flooded districts. The scandal shook the kingdom to its core, forcing everyone to confront uncomfortable truths about power and greed. For Sergeant Bran, the aftermath was bittersweet. While some hailed him as a hero, others whispered warnings about defying authority. But none of that mattered to him. What truly brought him peace was seeing justice served, not for glory, but because it was right. His actions reminded the people that the royal guards weren't just enforcers of law. They were defenders of integrity, willing to stand up against wrongdoing no matter the cost. In the weeks that followed, the story of Bran's courage spread like wildfire. Citizens began looking at the guards differently, realizing that behind their armor beat hearts brave enough to challenge even the highest echelons of power. And though Bran returned to his duties without fanfare, he carried with him the knowledge that sometimes the smallest spark of courage can ignite change that lights up an entire kingdom. The storm hit without warning, rolling in like an angry beast from the horizon. Dark clouds swallowed the sky, and within moments, rain began pouring down in sheets, turning the dusty streets into rivers of mud. Lightning illuminated the city in flashes, followed by thunderclaps that rattled windows and sent animals scurrying for shelter. The lower district, already prone to flooding due to its proximity to the river, was quickly submerged. Water rushed through doorways, sweeping away furniture, tools, and precious belongings that families had spent years collecting. In the chaos, 2 junior guards, Finn and Ilara, found themselves patrolling the area, their boots sloshing through ankle-deep water. They had been assigned to ensure no one ventured too close to the swollen riverbanks, but what they encountered changed everything. As they turned a corner, they saw a group of villagers huddled together under a crumbling awning, shivering and soaked to the bone. Among them were elderly men and women, young mothers clutching crying babies, and children staring blankly at the rising waters. The scene tugged at something deep inside both guards. "This isn't right," Finn muttered, his voice barely audible over the howling wind. "We can't just stand here while they're drowning." Ilara nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the surroundings. She spotted an old guardhouse nearby, a small, unused building that hadn't seen activity in years. It wasn't much, but it was dry and sturdy enough to provide temporary refuge. Without hesitation, she made up her mind. "Come with me," she called out to the villagers, motioning toward the structure. At first, the people hesitated, unsure whether they could trust the guards. But when Ilara stepped forward and extended a hand to an older woman struggling to stay upright, the ice broke. Slowly, the group began following her, guided by Finn, who carried a toddler on his back, while helping others navigate the treacherous waters. Inside the guardhouse, the air smelled musty, but it was warm and dry compared to the raging storm outside. Finn and Ilara worked tirelessly, clearing cobwebs and dragging in whatever supplies they could find. Blankets from their patrol packs, firewood stored in the corner, and even food rations meant for emergencies. Together, they built a small fire in the hearth, its flickering light casting shadows on the walls and bringing a glimmer of hope to the frightened faces around them. As the night wore on, the guards stayed by the villagers' side, lending not only physical help but also words of encouragement. Ilara knelt beside a young girl who clutched a soggy doll to her chest, whispering stories of brave heroes who faced storms and emerged stronger. Finn shared jokes with a group of boys, making them laugh despite the dire circumstances. For the first time, the villagers saw the guards not as distant figures of authority, but as fellow human beings willing to roll up their sleeves and get dirty for the sake of others. Word of their actions spread quickly once the storm passed. Neighbors who had witnessed the rescue efforts spoke of the kindness shown by Finn and Ilara, describing how they defied protocol to open the guardhouse and offer aid. Some skeptics dismissed the tale as exaggeration, refusing to believe that royal guards would risk trouble for ordinary citizens. But those who had been there knew better. They had felt the warmth of the fire, seen the determination in the guards' eyes, and heard their reassuring voices during the darkest hours. For Finn and Ilara, it was simply part of their duty to protect and serve. Yet, deep down, they couldn't deny the sense of fulfillment that came from seeing smiles return to the villagers' faces. What started as a routine patrol had transformed into something far greater. A reminder that compassion could shine even in the bleakest moments, bridging gaps between people and proving that humanity existed even behind the badges of authority. One chilly evening, the kingdom was alive with the sounds of laughter and music as a grand festival took over the streets. Colorful lanterns swayed gently in the breeze, casting warm glows on the cobblestones below. Merchants shouted enthusiastically, trying to attract customers to their stalls, filled with handmade trinkets, steaming pies, and sweet pastries. Children darted between legs, giggling as they played games, while adults exchanged stories over mugs of spiced cider. It was a night meant for joy, connection, and celebration. Amidst the chaos, a young boy named Leo tugged at his mother's hand, his wide eyes taking in the wonders around him. His small fingers were sticky from the caramel apple he'd just eaten, and his cheeks were flushed with excitement. "Can we go see the jugglers next?" he asked eagerly, pointing toward a crowd gathered near the fountain. His mother smiled down at him, nodding as she promised they'd make their way there soon. But as the minutes ticked by, the bustling crowd grew thicker, pushing them apart without either realizing it. At first, Leo didn't notice. He stood still, craning his neck to watch a performer juggle flaming torches. The flames mesmerized him, their orange glow flickering against the darkening sky. But when he turned to share his awe with his mother, she was nowhere to be found. Panic bubbled up inside him as he spun around, searching desperately for her familiar face. The cheerful noises of the festival suddenly felt distant, replaced by the pounding of his own heart. Tears welled up in his big brown eyes as he called out, "Mama, Mama." His voice was swallowed by the noise of the crowd. Captain Alaric, who had been stationed nearby to oversee security during the event, noticed the commotion. At first glance, the boy seemed like just another child enjoying the festivities, but something about the way he clutched his little jacket tightly and looked around frantically caught Alaric's attention. Stepping forward, he knelt beside the trembling child, his tall frame casting a shadow over the boy. "Are you lost, lad?" he asked in a calm but firm tone, his deep voice cutting through the din. Leo sniffled, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. I can't find my mama," he stammered, tears streaming down his face. Without hesitation, Alaric removed his heavy cloak, the same one that bore the emblem of the royal guard, and draped it over the boy's shoulders. The fabric was far too large for Leo's tiny frame, but it provided warmth and comfort. "Don't worry," Alaric said gently. We'll find her together." With that, the captain scooped Leo into his arms, holding him securely as he began asking nearby vendors and festival goers if they'd seen a woman searching for her son. Each step he took was deliberate, his sharp eyes scanning the sea of faces. Though his duty was to maintain order, Alaric couldn't ignore the frightened child in his care. As they moved through the crowd, whispers rippled among the onlookers. Some recognized the captain's armor and watched in disbelief as this towering figure carried a crying boy with such tenderness. Finally, after what felt like an eternity to Leo, a desperate cry rang out. "Leo!" Oh, thank goodness. A woman pushed her way through the throng, her face pale with worry. When she reached them, she threw her arms around her son, pulling him close. "I've been looking everywhere for you," she sobbed, pressing kisses to his forehead. Alaric stepped back respectfully, allowing the reunion to unfold. As the mother thanked him profusely, Alaric simply nodded, his expression softening slightly. "It's my duty to keep everyone safe," he replied humbly. Then, with a final glance at the now smiling boy, he turned and disappeared back into the crowd, his cloak left behind as a token of reassurance. For Leo and his mother, it was a moment they wouldn't soon forget, a reminder that even those who seemed untouchable could show kindness when it mattered most. Captain Alaric wasn't the kind of man who sought attention. Known for his quiet demeanor and unwavering dedication to duty, he preferred to stay in the background, letting his actions speak for themselves. But ever since that fateful evening at the festival when he'd reunited young Leo with his mother, something unexpected had begun to unfold, a bond neither of them could have anticipated. Leo, a curious and spirited boy with an insatiable appetite for stories, didn't forget the tall, armored figure who had carried him safely back to his mother. Over the next few weeks, whenever Captain Alaric passed through the neighborhood on patrol, Leo would run up to him, his eyes sparkling with questions. "Why do you wear so much armor?" he asked one day, tugging gently at the hem of Alaric's cloak. "Does it get heavy?" Another time, he wondered aloud, "Have you ever fought a dragon?" At first, Alaric responded with short, polite answers, unsure how to handle the child's enthusiasm. He was a soldier, not a storyteller, and interacting with civilians, especially children, wasn't part of his usual routine. But there was something about Leo's innocence and genuine curiosity that softened Alaric's rigid exterior. Slowly, he began opening up, sharing bits of wisdom wrapped in simple lessons. "Courage isn't about being fearless," he explained during one visit, kneeling to meet Leo's gaze. "It's about doing what's right even when you're scared." On another occasion, as they walked along the edge of the marketplace, Alaric pointed out the importance of teamwork among the guards. "No one stands alone," he said. "We protect each other because we're stronger together." These conversations became a regular part of their days, drawing smiles from passersby, who noticed the unlikely friendship blossoming between the stern captain and the lively boy. For Leo, these moments were magical. To him, Captain Alaric wasn't just a guard. He was a hero, a teacher, and a friend all rolled into one. And for Alaric, spending time with Leo reminded him of why he had joined the Royal Guard in the first place, to make a difference, no matter how small. One sunny afternoon, Alaric decided to take things a step further. He brought Leo to the training grounds, where the guards practiced drills and honed their skills. The sight of soldiers sparring with wooden swords and shields left Leo wide-eyed with wonder. "Can I try?" he asked eagerly, pointing at the equipment. Chuckling softly, Alaric handed him a lightweight wooden sword, showing him how to hold it properly. "Remember," he instructed, "a true warrior uses his strength wisely and never hurts others unless absolutely necessary." As Leo swung the sword clumsily but enthusiastically, Alaric couldn't help but feel a warmth spread through his chest. Teaching the boy wasn't just about passing on knowledge. It was about instilling values like discipline, respect, and kindness. These lessons weren't limited to battles or duties. They applied to life itself. Through Leo's laughter and boundless energy, Alaric rediscovered a sense of purpose he hadn't realized he'd been missing. Their bond didn't go unnoticed by the community. Neighbors often peeked out of windows or paused in their daily routines to watch the pair interact. Some chuckled at the sight of the towering captain patiently answering Leo's endless stream of questions, while others felt a pang of admiration. Here was proof that even those who seemed distant and unapproachable could connect deeply with others if given the chance. For Alaric, this newfound connection changed him in subtle yet profound ways. It reminded him that behind every uniform was a person capable of compassion, empathy, and growth. And for Leo, having Captain Alaric as a mentor shaped his understanding of authority figures, not as intimidating enforcers, but as guardians who cared deeply for the people they served. Their friendship became a beacon of hope, proving that acts of kindness, no matter how small, could create ripples far beyond what anyone might expect. The ripples of kindness created by the Royal Guard spread far beyond what anyone could have imagined. What started as small individual acts, helping a lost child, sheltering villagers during a storm, standing up against corruption, and delivering anonymous gifts, began to transform how the kingdom viewed these steadfast figures in armor. No longer were they seen merely as enforcers of law or distant symbols of authority. Instead, they became beloved protectors who cared deeply for the people they served. Word of their deeds traveled quickly, carried by merchants on trade routes, shared around crackling fires in village squares, and whispered among children playing in alleys. Stories of Captain Alaric's bond with young Leo inspired parents to teach their own kids about courage and responsibility. Tales of Finn and Ilara opening the old guardhouse during the flood gave hope to families living in fear of harsh winters. And Sergeant Brand's bravery in exposing corruption reminded everyone that even the smallest voice could challenge injustice if spoken with conviction. But it wasn't just the stories themselves that changed hearts. It was the actions they inspired. Villagers began looking out for one another more closely, mirroring the compassion shown by the guards. A baker who once hesitated to give away stale bread now left loaves on his doorstep for hungry passersby. A blacksmith repaired tools for struggling farmers without asking for payment. Even children joined in, sharing toys and helping elders carry firewood. The kindness of the guards had sparked something contagious, a chain reaction of goodwill that touched every corner of the kingdom. For the guards themselves, this shift brought unexpected rewards. Interactions with citizens grew warmer, smiles replaced wary glances, and conversations flowed freely where before there had been silence. Children no longer ran from them, but waved enthusiastically, calling out greetings as they passed. Merchants offered discounts at market stalls, insisting the guards take home fresh produce or warm pastries for all you've done. These gestures, though simple, filled the guards with a sense of belonging they hadn't felt before. Commander Edric noticed the change most keenly. During patrols, he often overheard snippets of conversations praising the guards' efforts. One day, while walking through the marketplace, a little girl tugged at his cape and handed him a flower she'd picked from her garden. "Thank you for keeping us safe," she said shyly before darting back to her mother. Moments like these stayed with Edric, reinforcing his belief that their work extended far beyond maintaining order. It was about fostering trust, empathy, and unity. As years passed, the legacy of those initial acts of kindness continued to grow. New recruits entering the ranks of the Royal Guards were taught not only about discipline and duty, but also about compassion and service. Training sessions included lessons on recognizing community needs and finding ways to help, ensuring that future generations would carry forward the values demonstrated by their predecessors. Even the king took notice, issuing decrees aimed at supporting initiatives born from the Guards' example. Funds were allocated to improve living conditions in poorer districts, and annual festivals included ceremonies honoring ordinary citizens who performed extraordinary acts of generosity. The entire kingdom seemed to breathe easier, united by a shared commitment to care for one another. Looking back, none of the guards could pinpoint exactly when things had shifted, from division to connection, from mistrust to mutual respect. But they didn't need to. What mattered was the result, a kingdom strengthened not by force or power, but by love and understanding. In the end, their greatest triumph wasn't found in battles won or laws enforced. It was in the countless lives they touched, proving that true strength lies in the ability to serve others with an open heart. And so, the story of the Royal Guards became more than history. It became a timeless reminder that even the smallest act of kindness can melt the hardest hearts and build bridges where none existed before. The palace gates stood tall and imposing, their iron bars gleaming under the pale light of the morning sun. For most travelers, approaching these gates meant facing scrutiny. Guards would demand identification, ask probing questions, and often turn away those without proper clearance. But for Miriam, a weary healer with dirt-streaked hands and a heart full of determination, the gates represented both a challenge and a lifeline. Miriam had been traveling across kingdoms for years, her caravan filled with herbs, ointments, and remedies she used to treat the sick and injured. Her journey had taken her to remote villages, war-torn regions, and bustling cities, each stop adding more stories to her already rich tapestry of experiences. But this time, her travels had ended abruptly when bandits ambushed her group days earlier. She escaped with her life but little else. Her supplies were stolen, her companions scattered, and her spirit shaken. With nowhere else to go, she arrived at the palace gates, hoping for refuge. As she approached, Guard Commander Edric stepped forward, his armor polished to perfection and his expression unreadable. "State your business," he said firmly, though not unkindly. Miriam hesitated, clutching the strap of her satchel tightly. "I am a healer," she began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "My caravan was attacked, and I seek shelter until I can continue my journey." Edric studied her carefully, noting the calluses on her hands from years of mixing poultices and stitching wounds. Something about her demeanor struck him, not desperation, but quiet resilience. Instead of dismissing her outright, he asked, "What skills do you possess that might benefit us here?" Miriam's eyes lit up slightly, and she explained how she treated ailments ranging from fevers to battle scars, using knowledge passed down through generations of healers. Intrigued, Edric escorted her inside the palace walls, where soldiers recovering from recent skirmishes lay in makeshift infirmaries. The royal guards were known for their strength and discipline, but even they weren't immune to injury. Many bore untreated wounds or struggled with lingering pain due to limited medical resources. Recognizing an opportunity, Edric made a bold decision. He offered Miriam temporary lodging within the barracks if she agreed to tend to the injured soldiers. Over the following weeks, Miriam worked tirelessly, moving between cots and tending to men who had long since resigned themselves to discomfort. She brewed teas to soothe sore throats, applied herbal salves to reduce swelling, and stitched cuts with precision that left barely visible scars. More importantly, she listened. Each soldier had a story, a reason they fought, a loved one they missed, a fear they carried. Through her care, Miriam became more than just a healer. She became a confidant, someone who reminded them of their humanity amidst the rigidity of military life. Her presence brought warmth to the otherwise austere environment of the barracks. Soldiers who once joked about never needing help now eagerly awaited her visits. Even the gruffest among them softened under her gentle touch and encouraging words. "You'll be back on your feet in no time," she'd say with a reassuring smile, her faith in their recovery unwavering. For Commander Edric, watching this transformation unfold was humbling. He realized that protecting his men wasn't just about shielding them from physical harm. It was also about ensuring their well-being in every sense. Allowing Miriam into their midst hadn't just healed bodies. It had mended spirits and fostered a sense of camaraderie that transcended rank and duty. When the time came for Miriam to leave, she did so with gratitude. For the shelter provided, yes, but also for the friendships forged and the lives touched. As the gates closed behind her, Edric couldn't help but reflect on what her stay had taught him. True leadership wasn't about enforcing rules alone. It was about recognizing needs and acting with compassion. And sometimes, unexpected acts of kindness could ripple outward, leaving lasting impacts on everyone involved. The annual winter feast was a time of celebration, a tradition that brought the entire kingdom together. The palace halls were adorned with garlands of evergreen, twinkling lanterns casting a warm glow over tables laden with roasted meats, spiced cakes, and steaming mugs of mulled wine. Nobles dressed in their finest silks mingled with merchants and artisans, exchanging laughter and gifts as snowflakes drifted lazily outside the windows. It was a night meant for joy, gratitude, and generosity. But amidst the festivities, a quiet plan was taking shape, one that would touch lives far beyond the palace walls. For weeks leading up to the feast, whispers had circulated among the ranks of the royal guards. These weren't idle rumors or gossip. They were discussions about how to give back to those who needed it most. The guards may have been known for their discipline and stoic demeanor, but beneath their armor lay hearts attuned to the struggles of the people they served. It started with Sergeant Bran, whose recent act of bravery had inspired his fellow guards to think beyond their duties. "We protect them every day," he said during one evening gathering in the barracks. "Why not show them we care in ways they can see and feel?" His words struck a chord. Slowly, the idea took root. Instead of exchanging lavish gifts among themselves, the guards decided to pool their modest earnings to help struggling families in the outer villages, those hit hardest by harsh winters and lingering hardships from Lord Sidric's corruption scandal. Each guard contributed what they could, no matter how small. Some donated portions of their monthly stipends, while others sold trinkets or handmade crafts to raise extra coin. Together, they purchased blankets woven thick enough to ward off the biting cold, sacks of flour and grains to fill empty pantries, and bundles of firewood to keep hearths burning through the long nights. The effort was anonymous. There were no grand announcements or expectations of recognition. Their only goal was to bring warmth and hope to those who had little left. On the eve of the feast, under the cover of darkness, teams of guards set out on horse-drawn carts loaded with supplies. They traveled quietly to the outer villages, avoiding attention as they delivered their gifts. Doors creaked open cautiously at first, revealing faces etched with weariness and suspicion. But when the guards explained their purpose, not as enforcers, but as neighbors offering aid, the tension melted away. Eyes widened in disbelief, followed by tears of gratitude. In one village, an elderly woman clutched a blanket to her chest, murmuring prayers of thanks. In another, a father embraced a sack of grain, knowing it would feed his children for weeks. Children giggled as they unwrapped colorful scarves, their laughter cutting through the frosty air like sunlight breaking through clouds. No names were given, no badges displayed. The guards simply smiled, wished everyone well, and disappeared into the night as silently as they had arrived. When news of these mysterious deliveries reached the king, he summoned Commander Edric for answers. At first, the commander hesitated, reluctant to take credit for something done so humbly. But when pressed, he admitted the truth. This was the work of the royal guards. Far from being upset, the king was deeply moved. During the feast, he raised his goblet in a toast, praising the guards for embodying the true spirit of service and selflessness. The room erupted in applause, though the guards themselves remained humble, blending into the crowd without seeking acknowledgement. For the villagers, however, the impact was profound. Wrapped in warm blankets and surrounded by provisions, they felt seen and cared for in ways they hadn't expected. Questions lingered. Who were these unseen benefactors? What had prompted such kindness? Though the answers remained elusive, one thing was certain. The royal guards had proven themselves to be more than protectors. They were compassionate allies willing to share their own comforts to ease the burdens of others. And so, what began as a simple act of goodwill became a beacon of unity, bridging divides and reminding everyone that even in the coldest months, humanity's warmth could shine brightest.